What happens when America's sweetheart meets late-night television's golden boy, and things go completely sideways? Tonight we're diving into one of the most shocking moments in talk show history, where a simple interview turned into an explosive confrontation that left everyone in the studio speechless. You won't believe how quickly this went from friendly banter to full-blown chaos. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story has more twists than you could ever imagine. The Tonight Show, starring Jimmy Fallon, was running like clockwork that evening. The audience was buzzing with excitement. The band was tight, and Jimmy was in his usual high-energy mood. Kelly Clarkson was scheduled as the main guest, promoting her latest album and talk show. Everything seemed perfectly normal as she walked out to thunderous applause, flashing her trademark smile and waving to the crowd. "Kelly Clarkson, everyone," Jimmy announced, his voice carrying that familiar enthusiasm that made him a household name. "How are you doing tonight?" Kelly settled into the guest chair, adjusting her dress and beaming at the audience. "I'm doing fantastic, Jimmy. Thanks for having me back on the show. Always a pleasure to have you here. You look amazing, by the way. That dress is stunning. Thank you so much. You know, I actually picked this out specifically for tonight because I wanted to look my best for your audience." Jimmy leaned forward slightly, his interviewer instincts kicking in. "Speaking of looking your best, I have to ask about something that's been circulating online lately. There have been some photos of you looking a bit different recently, and people are talking." Kelly's smile faltered just slightly, but she maintained her composure. "Different how, Jimmy?" "Well, you know how the internet is. People are saying you've been using some kind of enhancement, maybe some work done. I mean, you look great, but fans are curious," the audience murmured softly, sensing a shift in the conversation's tone. Kelly's posture straightened, and her voice took on a slightly cooler edge. "Jimmy, I'm not sure where you're going with this, but I came here to talk about my music and my show, not to discuss my appearance or what people think about how I look." Jimmy chuckled, seemingly oblivious to the warning signs. "Oh, come on. Kelly, it's nothing serious. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You look different, that's all. Maybe it's just good lighting or something." "Good lighting," Kelly repeated, her voice rising just a notch. "Jimmy, are you seriously sitting here suggesting that I've had work done and then trying to play it off as a joke?" The late-night host seemed to realize he might have stepped into dangerous territory. But instead of backing down, he doubled down with what he probably thought was charm. Hey, relax. I'm not trying to start anything here. Look, everyone in Hollywood gets a little help sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just curious, for the audience." Kelly's eyes flashed with something that made the front row of the audience lean back slightly. "Curious for the audience, or curious because you think it's okay to comment on a woman's body and appearance on national television?" "Whoa, Kelly! I think you're taking this the wrong way. I mean, you're a public figure. People talk about this stuff all the time. I interview celebrities every night who are open about procedures they've had done. And did those celebrities volunteer that information, or did you ambush them with it during what was supposed to be a promotional interview?" Jimmy's laugh sounded forced now, and he glanced toward his desk as if looking for an escape route. "Ambush is a strong word. I'm just making conversation. This is how talk shows work, Kelly. We chat, we joke around, we talk about what's current." "What's current?" Kelly's voice was getting sharper by the moment. "Jimmy, what's current is that I have a #1 album, a successful talk show, and I'm here to promote my work, not to be scrutinized like I'm some kind of specimen under a microscope." The audience was completely silent now, the usual laughter and applause replaced by an uncomfortable tension that seemed to fill every corner of the studio. Jimmy's band members were looking at each other with worried expressions, and the cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of the escalating confrontation. "Look, Kelly, I think maybe we should move on to talking about your album," Jimmy suggested, his voice losing some of its usual confidence. "I didn't mean to upset you." "You didn't mean to upset me." Kelly stood up from her chair, and the action sent a ripple of shock through the audience. "Jimmy, you just spent the first 5 minutes of this interview basically telling me that I look fake and asking me to confirm or deny whether I've had plastic surgery. How exactly did you think I was going to react to that?" Jimmy remained seated, but his body language showed he was clearly uncomfortable with how quickly the situation had spiraled. "Kelly, please sit down. Let's just start over. I apologize if I said something wrong, if you said something wrong." Kelly's voice carried across the studio with crystal clarity. Jimmy, there's no if about it. What you did was completely inappropriate. And frankly, I'm shocked that someone with your experience would think that was an acceptable way to start an interview. The host finally stood up, perhaps thinking it would help diffuse the situation, but Kelly took a step back, creating more distance between them. I've been doing this for over 20 years. Jimmy, I've sat through thousands of interviews, and I've dealt with my fair share of inappropriate questions and comments. But I have never, and I mean never, had someone start an interview by essentially telling me I look fake and demanding an explanation. Jimmy held up his hands in what looked like a gesture of surrender. Kelly, I'm sorry. I really am. I was trying to be conversational, and clearly I misjudged the situation. Can we please just sit down and start fresh? Start fresh. Kelly's laugh had no humor in it whatsoever. Jimmy, you can't just apologize your way out of this and pretend it didn't happen. You made a choice to open this interview by commenting on my appearance and implying that I've been dishonest about it. That's not a mistake, that's a decision. The cameras continued to capture every word, every gesture, every moment of the unfolding drama. In the control room, producers were probably having heated discussions about whether to cut to commercial, but the train had already left the station and there was no stopping it now. I understand you're upset, Jimmy said, his voice quieter now, and you have every right to be. I stepped over a line, and I'm genuinely sorry about that. But we're alive right now, and I'm hoping we can work through this together. Work through this together. Kelly shook her head in disbelief. Jimmy, this isn't something we work through together. This is something you created, and now you're asking me to help you fix it while we're on national television. Do you understand how unfair that is? The audience was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Some were pulling out their phones, undoubtedly recording what they sensed was going to be a viral moment. Others just sat transfixed, watching two major celebrities have what amounted to a very public argument in real time. Jimmy tried once more to salvage the situation. Kelly, I know I messed up. I'm asking for your help here. We're both professionals. We can get through this. Kelly looked at him for a long moment, and everyone in the studio held their breath, wondering what would happen next. You know what, Jimmy? Kelly's voice had become eerily calm, which somehow made it even more unsettling. You want me to help you? Here's how I'm going to help you. I'm going to tell you exactly what's wrong with what just happened here. And maybe you'll learn something. Jimmy nodded eagerly, clearly hoping this meant they were moving toward resolution. Yes, absolutely. First of all, Kelly began, her voice steady but sharp, commenting on a woman's appearance and suggesting she's had work done isn't casual conversation. It's invasive, it's inappropriate, and it perpetuates the idea that women exist primarily to be looked at and judged. I understand that now, Jimmy interjected quickly. I really do. No, Jimmy, you don't get to interrupt me right now. You asked me to help you understand, so I'm going to finish. The firmness in her voice made it clear this wasn't a request. Second, when you say everyone in Hollywood gets help and there's nothing wrong with it, you're missing the entire point. Whether there's something wrong with plastic surgery isn't the issue. The issue is that you don't get to demand that I discuss my personal medical decisions with you and millions of viewers. Jimmy opened his mouth to respond, but Kelly held up her hand. I'm not done. Third, and this is the part that really bothers me. You tried to make this about being conversational and doing what talk show hosts do. But here's the thing, Jimmy. I've been on dozens of talk shows. I've been on this show before. And somehow, other hosts managed to have perfectly good conversations with me without commenting on my body or appearance. The audience was completely riveted. This had gone far beyond a simple misunderstanding and had become something much more significant. Kelly wasn't just defending herself. She was making a broader point about how women are treated in the entertainment industry. Kelly, Jimmy said softly, I hear everything you're saying, and you're absolutely right. I made a huge mistake. A mistake. Kelly's eyebrows shot up. Jimmy, what would you call it if I sat here and started asking you about whether you've had hair plugs? What if I opened our interview by saying, you look different, and demanded to know if you've had work done on your face? Jimmy looked genuinely uncomfortable at the thought. I would probably be pretty upset about that. Pretty upset. Kelly's voice rose again. Jimmy, you would be furious. You would probably walk off this stage, and you'd be completely justified in doing so. But somehow, when it's a woman sitting in this chair, it becomes fair game for casual conversation. No, it doesn't, Jimmy admitted. You're absolutely right, and I'm sorry. Stop apologizing, Kelly snapped. Your apologies don't fix what you did, and they don't undo the fact that millions of people just watched you treat me like this. Do you understand that every woman watching this show just saw you? Basically tell me that my worth as a guest is tied to how I look and whether I've been honest about it. The studio was so quiet that the hum of the cameras and lights seemed loud. Jimmy looked genuinely stricken, but Kelly wasn't finished. And you know what the worst part is? You're not a bad person, Jimmy. I know that. We've met before. We've had pleasant interactions. But you just demonstrated how deeply ingrained this stuff is. You probably didn't even think twice about those questions because commenting on women's appearances is just so normal, so expected that it didn't occur. To you, how inappropriate it was. I should have thought about it, Jimmy said quietly. There's no excuse for that. No, there isn't. And here's what really frustrates me about this situation. Now I'm in a position where I either have to sit here and pretend this is fine, which sends the message that it's okay to treat women this way, or I have to be the difficult guest, the diva who couldn't take a joke, the woman who overreacted to a harmless comment. Jimmy looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Kelly, I never wanted to put you in that position, but you did put me in that position, Jimmy. The moment you decided to comment on my appearance, you put me in an impossible situation. And now you're asking me to help you get out of the mess you created. The late-night host ran his hands through his hair, looking more flustered than anyone had ever seen him on camera. I don't know what to say. You're absolutely right about everything, and I feel terrible about this. Feeling terrible doesn't help me, Jimmy. What would help me is if you understood why this matters. It's not just about me. It's not just about tonight. It's about the fact that women in this industry, women everywhere, deal with this constantly. We're constantly being evaluated based on how we look, whether we're aging gracefully, whether we've had work done, whether we're too fat, too thin, too made up, not made up enough. Kelly started pacing slightly, her energy building again. Do you know how exhausting it is? Do you have any idea what it's like to know that no matter what you accomplish, no matter how successful you become, there will always be people who think the most important thing about you is whether you look the way they think you should look? I don't, Jimmy admitted. I can't even imagine dealing with that kind of scrutiny. Of course you can't, because you don't have to. When's the last time someone opened an interview with you by commenting on your weight gain, or asking if you've had work done? When's the last time someone asked you to explain your skincare routine, or demanded to know if your hair is real? Jimmy looked like he was starting to truly understand the scope of what he had stepped into. It doesn't happen. Ever. Exactly. It doesn't happen because you're a man, and men in this industry get to be judged primarily on their work, their talent, their success. Women get judged on all of that, plus how we look while we're doing it. The audience was hanging on every word. Some people were nodding in agreement, others looked uncomfortable, but everyone was clearly engaged with what was happening. I want to make this right, Jimmy said. Tell me how I can make this right. Kelly stopped pacing and looked directly at him. You can't make it right, Jimmy. It's already out there. Millions of people just watched this happen. But maybe, this can be a learning moment. Maybe other hosts will think twice before making comments like that. Maybe some viewers will recognize this pattern and call it out when they see it. I hope they do, Jimmy said sincerely. I hope this makes other people more aware, because clearly I needed to be more aware. The thing is, Jimmy, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're a product of a system that teaches us that women's bodies are public property, that women's appearances are fair game for commentary and critique. But being a product of that system doesn't excuse participating in it. Jimmy nodded. Slowly, you're right, and I should have known better. I do know better, I just didn't think. That's the problem right there, Kelly said, her voice getting more intense again. You didn't think about how those questions would make me feel. You didn't think about what message it sends. You didn't think about whether it was appropriate. You just opened your mouth and said whatever came to mind because you've been conditioned to believe that commenting on women's appearances is normal. The tension in the room was palpable. Jimmy looked completely deflated, and Kelly looked like she was just getting started. "And you know what else bothers me about this situation?" Kelly continued, her voice gaining momentum. "The fact that you seemed surprised by my reaction. Did you really think I was going to smile and nod and play along when you started questioning my authenticity on national television?" Jimmy shifted uncomfortably in his position. "I honestly didn't think it through that far." "That's exactly my point, Jimmy. You didn't think about me as a person with feelings and dignity. You thought about me as content for your show. You thought about what would make good television, what might get people talking, what might generate some buzz, but you didn't think about the human being sitting across from you." The cameras continued rolling, capturing every moment of what was becoming one of the most intense confrontations in late-night television history. Across America, people were probably calling their friends and posting on social media about what they were witnessing. "Kelly, I swear to you, that wasn't my intention," Jimmy said, his voice carrying a note of desperation. "I would never intentionally try to hurt you or disrespect you. But you did hurt me, Jimmy, and you did disrespect me. And the fact that it wasn't intentional almost makes it worse, because it means this kind of treatment of women is so normalized that you didn't even recognize it as problematic." Kelly walked closer to where Jimmy was standing, and her proximity seemed to make the moment even more intense. "Let me ask you something, Jimmy. In your mind, when you were preparing for this interview, what did you think the main focus should be? What did you think people tuned in to hear about?" Jimmy looked genuinely confused by the question. "Your music, your show, your projects, your career. Exactly, my work, my accomplishments, the things I've created, and the success I've earned through talent and hard work. So tell me, how does commenting on my appearance serve any of those goals? How does questioning whether I've had plastic surgery contribute to a conversation about my music or my television show?" Jimmy opened his mouth but seemed to realize he had no good answer. There's no connection at all, right? So what you did was derail an interview about my professional accomplishments to focus on my physical appearance. You turned what should have been a platform for me to share my work into an interrogation about my body. Do you see how that's a problem?" "I do see it now," Jimmy admitted, "and I feel horrible about it." "Jimmy, stop telling me how you feel, and start thinking about what this means. This isn't about your feelings. This is about a pattern of behavior that affects women everywhere." Kelly's voice was strong and clear, and she seemed to grow more confident with each word. "Every time a woman is interviewed and the focus shifts to her appearance, we're sending a message that no matter what she accomplishes, how she looks is still the most important thing about her. Every time we ask women to explain or justify their bodies, we're reinforcing the idea that women's bodies belong to the public." "I never thought about it that way," Jimmy said quietly. "Of course you didn't, because you've never had to. But I want you to think about something, Jimmy. I've sold over 25 million albums worldwide. I've won multiple Grammy Awards. I have a successful talk show that's helped countless people. I've used my platform to advocate for important causes. But 5 minutes into this interview, none of that mattered to you. What mattered was whether you thought I looked different." The weight of her words seemed to settle over the entire studio. Jimmy looked like he was seeing the situation clearly for the first time. "Kelly, I am so sorry. I completely screwed this up, and I don't know how to fix it." "You can't fix it, Jimmy. It's done. But maybe you can learn from it. Maybe you can. Do better next time. Maybe you can think twice before you comment on a woman's appearance. Maybe you can ask yourself whether your questions are serving your guest or just satisfying curiosity." Kelly took a deep breath and looked out at the audience, many of whom were leaning forward in their seats, completely absorbed in what was happening. "You know what, Jimmy? I came here tonight to talk about my work, to connect with your audience, to share some music and some stories. But instead, I've spent the last 15 minutes having to defend my right to exist in my body without commentary or judgment." "I know, and I'm responsible for that," Jimmy said. "This is entirely my fault. Yes, it is your fault. And the fact that you can acknowledge that shows me that you're capable of understanding why this is wrong. But understanding it after the fact doesn't change what happened here tonight." Kelly walked back toward her chair but didn't sit down. Instead, she picked up her purse from beside it. "I need you to understand something, Jimmy. I'm not walking away from this interview because I'm a diva or because I can't handle criticism or because I'm being oversensitive. I'm walking away because what happened here tonight was unacceptable, and I refuse to normalize it by pretending it's okay. Jimmy's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. Kelly, please don't leave. We can work through this. We can have a real conversation about your music and your show. No, Jimmy, we can't, because the damage is already done. You've already shown your audience and everyone watching at home that you think it's appropriate to comment on women's bodies. You've already demonstrated that you consider a woman's appearance to be fair game for public discussion. I can't pretend that didn't happen. Kelly slung her purse over her shoulder and looked directly into the nearest camera. To everyone watching at home, especially the women and girls, I want you to know that you don't have to accept this kind of treatment. You don't have to smile and nod when someone makes inappropriate comments about your body. You don't have to play along when someone treats your appearance like it's public property. Which turned back to Jimmy one last time. Jimmy, I hope you learn from this. I hope you think about what happened here tonight and make sure it never happens again, not just with me, but with any woman who sits in that chair. Kelly, please, Jimmy said, but she was already walking toward the edge of the stage. Good night, everyone, Kelly said to the audience, her voice calm but firm. Thank you for listening, and I hope this conversation continues long after the cameras stop rolling. And with that, Kelly Clarkson walked off the Tonight Show stage, leaving behind a stunned audience, a mortified host, and what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked about moments in late-night television history. Jimmy stood alone on the stage for a moment, clearly unsure of what to do next. The audience sat in complete silence, processing what they had just witnessed. Finally, Jimmy walked over to his desk and sat down heavily. We're going to take a break, he said to the camera, his voice barely above a whisper. We'll be right back. But everyone in that studio knew that, when they came back, nothing would ever be quite the same. What did you think about Kelly's decision to walk off the show? Was she right to make her stand, or should she have stayed to finish the interview? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.